What's going on, guys?
Hey,
Hello.
hey Connor,
How you guys doing?
pretty good. How about you?
Good, good. Not too bad. Excited.
Um, Let me know if there's anything I can do. If I need to I'll promote you to co-host, and I
Okay,
think that should give you any sharing stuff that you need.
perfect. Sounds good. Let me just see how it works here.
Sweet, that looks good to me.
Cool. Sounds good. All right. So how's it been running an online hackathon?
Popcorn Justine.
Hello. Hello.
What's up, Justine?
It's been good. How are you?
Not too bad, just chilling.
Sweet. I can't wait to see how much of core actually shows up to this call.
I hope it's most people, to be honest. I hope most people are core.
Let's do this.
That would be great.
I'm excited. I was talking to my neighbor, and I haven't done an iOS app in like 5 years, and he said that they've changed a lot of the way you do UI design. So I'm excited to learn something tonight.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad you're going to be following along too. That's cool. Yeah, I'm actually going to be doing that. I'll be doing like some Swift UI stuff. So I actually just learned it like a couple weeks ago. I had to like brush up on it. I didn't really know what it
Sweet.
was, but yeah, it should be cool.
Yeah, you just started at Capital One, right?
Yeah, just finished my first week of onboarding. So
Okay, sweet. Do
yeah,
you have do you
you
think
just
you're going to
finished it,
be
right?
doing? Yeah, I just finished a summer internship. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Do you think you're going to be doing any iOS work with them or working sort of other places?
Yeah, so in my first rotation, probably not. I just reading the chat here. Sorry. But I'm working on probably like a lot of like cloud and like AWS stuff,
Okay,
like building platforms, I guess. It's like my team is basically like when somebody applies for a credit card and like the platform that like actually like approves them or like denies them, like that'll be my team, um,
okay.
which seems pretty cool. So yeah, should
Yeah,
be.
the AWS like cloud stuff is fun. The only thing is they have so many different levels of like security that you have to get through. It's
Yeah.
sometimes a pain to like make sure you have the right security tokens locally and then the right security tokens on like the server you're running. Um, but yeah.
Yeah, they really lock that stuff down for sure. Did you have a lot of trouble with that kind of stuff, like getting authorization for things and whatnot, privileges?
It wasn't terrible because my manager was able to tell me like just here's the list of like the right VPCs, subnets that you need to use, um, things like that. So it was like maybe an extra day or two of work sometimes.
Mhm.
But yeah, it was a lot of fun though. That's exciting that you're working there. I think Justine's older brother's working at Capital One too. So
Oh yeah,
yeah,
I had
big
no idea.
big
What?
Capital One gang.
Apparently,
Oh,
yeah. What office is he in? Do you know?
he's in San Francisco.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, I don't know the deets, but
gotcha. I guess it
yeah.
doesn't matter now since everybody
Yeah, everyone's online everywhere.
pretty much. Yeah. Let's see. Hope I didn't say hello to you. How are you doing? I don't think we've actually met before in person, but I'm Connor. Good to meet you.
Hello. Yeah,
Thanks
we
for all the
haven't
help
met.
with
Yeah.
everything.
How long were you on MHacks?
I guess 2 years, my junior and senior year. So,
Cool.
yeah. How are you enjoying it so far, MHacks?
We haven't had an in-person event yet, but
True.
Pretty average, pretty good.
Nice. That's good. I'm sure it'll get better once you guys meet in person. That'll be good.
If we meet in person.
Good point. Yeah. Is this the only fall, like, or I guess fall event you guys are having, or are you guys planning on doing another one?
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, because COVID will not take a break.
Yeah, fair enough. That's
Yeah,
true.
I mean, our best case scenario is like winter, but I don't even know if that's gonna happen. We have to see.
Right. True. Not even like another online hackathon. You guys don't think?
Yeah, I don't
Probably.
know about that. We haven't figured that out yet, but
Probably
well,
still a lot to manage in person.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Sounds about right.
I miss MHacks 12. That was a lot of fun.
Those were good times for sure.
Yeah.
To be fair, though, we don't have to stay up nearly as much for this one.
True.
I don't know. Justine seemed pretty fine with it. Just like no sleep at all.
Yeah.
Oh no,
Kinda
I don't know
scary.
about you. I was at the help desk like overnight and I was not okay after that.
That's probably the worst I've seen you. Then, yeah.
I forgot about that. You're so happy to stay up for like 40 hours. It felt like crazy.
Justine really earned her Patagonia.
Yeah, honestly.
She works.
That's
for
what
that
it's all
thing.
about.
Exactly.
Yeah, that was all that was about.
Pretty much.
That was my fuel. You know.
I was gonna ask to. I was gonna play a little music before, like as people trickle in. Do I have to get any privileges for that, or how do I do that from here?
You mean like are like legally allowed to play it, or like what do you mean?
No, I mean like I guess I'm a co-host now. I can do that.
Oh, like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Play some bops.
Yeah. Let me look it up.
Yo.
What do you guys want to
DJ
listen
Connor.
to?
Just some MIDI music, sound, something like DRM. You don't have to pay.
Sorry, say that again.
Why don't you use old MIDI music or sound? Old thing, old music.
Gotcha.
Sorry, I'm very old, I think.
No, it's all good. You like what you like, you know? That's good. For everybody who's here, I'll probably get started around maybe like 10:03 or something, so people can figure out this Zoom thing.
Yo, what's up?
Let's see. Oh, okay, I gotta share my screen. All right.
Yeah, you play tennis?
I do, yeah. It's my hat's a little misleading, but I didn't play for the university.
Okay. You like playing singles or doubles?
And I was actually I played singles a lot, and yeah, I played doubles. I guess my first year of high school, but then I played singles more. How about you?
I played singles in high school. It's really fun, but I'm a incoming college freshman, so.
Oh yeah, gotcha. That's awesome. I was in so I just graduated college, and when I was a freshman, I joined rec tennis. I'm probably not still going on, but if it comes back in the winter, I definitely recommend it.
Okay. Was it fun? Good experience?
It was pretty fun. Yeah, you got to actually play like on the indoor courts too, like the varsity at the varsity tennis center.
Okay.
So it's pretty cool.
It's dope.
Yeah. All right, let's try this again. I'm gonna play some music here. Oh God, I got to install. All right, let me know if you guys hear this or if it's too loud or anything.
We can't hear anything.
Can't hear anything?
Mm-mm.
Of course, of course.
Are you using your earphones?
Yeah. I figured it'd still pick up sound from that, no?
Unless you were sharing your computer audio.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's what I'm trying.
I don't.
They're also oh, never mind. Now I can hear it.
Is it? Okay, cool. Is it too loud at all?
Like a little bit.
I don't know like what this is either. I just looked up so actually so just as a little icebreaker, I want everyone to tell me what their favorite dinosaur is and why. Maybe get a little chat, get a little something going in the typing chat. Go ahead and see what's going on there. Arrow keys, true. Is it still too loud?
I think it's fine now.
Cool, thank you.
Hey, can I say something about my favorite dinosaur?
Of course.
The T-Rex, that because he doesn't need the touch the meal, just eat and devour the meal. Is that
Sorry, I think the music was a little loud for me. Say that again.
my favorite dinosaur is the T-Rex because he doesn't need to touch the meal, just eat and that's it.
Interesting. Okay, I like that.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the COVID and the quarantine.
Gotcha. Interesting. Velociraptor, pretty solid. Cole, I like it. Ankylosaurus.
Oh, he said Yoshi. That's hilarious.
That's a solid one too. Yoshi's a good one. That side B is clutch. Very nice. Which Smash though?
Very nice.
Is it the new one? Brawl? Alright. How many people we got here? Alright. Looks like we got a good amount of people. Just when the music was getting good too. We're about to all drop. So we'll go ahead and kind of get started here. Can everybody hear me okay? Everybody give me a thumbs up or a yes or anything? Cool, perfect. Thank you. All right, so my name is Connor Svrcek. So I'm going to be giving a intro to iOS development talk here. Never given one of these talks over Zoom before, so this is going to be a little weird. So bear with me. So yeah, and if anybody has any questions throughout, I'm going to keep the chat up. So I'll be looking at that throughout as well. I think you can directly message to me if you don't want your questions seen, maybe. But otherwise, all questions welcome, whatever. Yeah, let's get started. So a little about me, if you guys are interested. I'm currently a software engineer at Capital One. Just graduated from U of M, majoring in computer science at the College of Engineering. During my time there, I was the Michigan Hackers president. Has anybody heard of Michigan Hackers? If not, it's a computer science kind of organization. Definitely recommend you join. I'm a little biased though. It's super cool. And Yeah, I was on the MHacks tech team as well for about 2 years, I think. And in my last year, my senior year, I actually led the iOS core team. So I guess I'd like to think I have a little experience on this topic. But feel free to ask me about iOS, MMA. I like watching UFC a lot. Living outside of Michigan or anything else really on this slide. I'd definitely be down to talk about it. So in order to actually successfully follow along with this talk, you're going to need a couple things. You're going to need a Mac or a MacBook, an iMac, something like that, something running Mac OS. You're also going to need an up-to-date Xcode. I think if you're like a couple versions behind or something, then it's still not going to work. I think it forces you to update. And you're also going to need something called CocoaPods, which we'll talk about that a little more later. But basically, you can start to install it now if you like, as I talk here. And you just run this command here. I'll actually type it in chat if anybody needs it later. So yeah, just type that into your terminal and it should start and get going. Somebody asked, what about Xamarin? What do you mean exactly? Like, am I going to be using it, or the applicability of it, or what does that mean exactly? I'll go on here as they type their response. So what is iOS? I'm sure all of us know what it is, but to give a little background, it was established in 2007 for the first generation iPhone. Obviously, iOS stands for iPhone OS. Pretty nifty. Today, it has a very large developer community. There's plenty of docs and different like articles out there by Apple and many other contributors as well. It's super cool. I definitely recommend you learn more about it. I think you'll learn a lot of stuff from it too, just outside of mobile. I think you'll learn a lot of programming concepts as well. And it's super sought after from employers. Employers love to see that you have mobile experience, especially today. It's super applicable. A little follow-up here. Somebody asked, what about Xamarin? And then they said, to make the development of iOS in that platform as we know it, is from MS. Microsoft. Okay, I gotcha. I actually have never used Xamarin. I have heard it's not the greatest, but if you're interested, I definitely recommend looking into it. Just Googling some Xamarin tutorials or something like that. I'll talk about a couple different options besides native iOS development a little later in the presentation as well. Hope that helps. So you may be wondering, how do we actually do iOS the native way? Kind of going back to Gonzalo's question. Basically, you're going to need things I mentioned earlier. You'll need a MacBook, anything running Mac OS. You can actually do it on Windows with a little bit of effort, but it's not as easy for sure. And you'll also need Xcode. You can also write like Swift or Objective-C code. If you don't know what those are, I'll talk about that later too. You can write that in other kind of developer or text editors and IDEs. But if you want to do the whole build and test and that kind of experience on iOS or any kind of Apple OS, you'll need to use Xcode. Natively, I should add, by the way. We'll talk a little more about non-native stuff, I think, a little later. And let's see. So yeah, Xcode, you can build iOS, Mac OS, watch OS, all kind of Apple OS things. And pro tip, it's also a great IDE for C++. EX281, hint, hint. I'm sure a lot of you are Michigan students. So I think they actually recommend it too. So yeah, it's great for that. Somebody asked, what if I use Ubuntu? Same thing as Windows, actually. Xcode is exclusively offered on Mac OS, unfortunately. Kind of sucks, but here we are. So what we're going to do today is we're going to be building your first iOS app. Maybe it's not your first, that's cool too. We're going to write it in Swift, which some of you may have heard of, but if you haven't, it is a modern programming language from Apple. It's used for writing iOS and all sorts of Apple OS apps. Even there's some server code that's written in Swift, I think. And after we build that app, I'll give you some resources and some good tips for where to go next. So your first app we're going to be building is called Movie Spot. I love movies, so I've been especially watching a lot in quarantine. So I figured why not make a movie app? And it's going to be basically a movie organizer and detailer. So you'll basically be able to organize some different movies and look at them on this app. We're going to showcase several iOS concepts, including Swift UI, fetching data from an API, and CocoaPods. I'll explain those later too. And in order to actually, I'll get to these questions a little after the slide as well. But in order to actually use this API, we're going to need an API key, which is supposed to be unique to every person. But for the purposes of this demo, I'm going to be sharing it. And I please do not share this API key amongst people outside of this talk. But I'll be deleting my account that's associated with it after the talk anyway. But again, please do not share the API key. So before we get started, I'll answer some of these questions. Somebody asked, would you recommend new developers start with Swift UI? I think it's kind of up to you, I guess. You can, so there's, I'll explain more of this as well, but we're gonna do Swift UI, which is essentially like pretty much a brand new way of creating views in iOS. And it's not like the old way. I think you definitely appreciate Swift UI more. I'm actually pretty new to Swift UI. And I guess kind of look into it, see like what you like better. If your goal to learn iOS is to actually like get hired as a mobile engineer, I'd probably recommend not starting with Swift UI because it's so new, and bigger companies probably wouldn't have adapted it by now. But yeah, I guess the best way is to definitely start with the old way and then work into Swift UI. It's going to be recorded. I think somebody answered that. Only we need the description to publish the app. Yep, that's right. To actually, you don't need, you don't need to pay anything to just successfully complete this demo. To actually publish the app, it's like a whole process. I won't talk about that today, but you can do your own research. What's the old way? Yeah, good question. You'll see once I do Swift UI, it's very like declarative. It's kind of similar to HTML, but the old way was more of an imperative way, which essentially is like you have to manually create these views in like a bunch of code, and it was just super long. And you have to, so you create these UIs, you add like a bunch of different attributes to them, and then you add them to the main view, and then you have to configure all these constraints. It was just a whole process. You can do your own research. I'd look into UIKit, which is kind of the old Swift UI. So yeah, if you want to learn the old way, then look into UIKit. So if there's no other questions, I'm going to switch my screen here. Let's see. Pull up this chat real quick. Move it over here. Let's see. All right. So we are going to start an Xcode project. So I'm going to assume you already have it installed. What I just did here, if you guys don't know, it's called the Spotlight search. It's like a Mac thing. So you just hold Command space, and then you just type in applications and files and all that. So I'm just going to go to Xcode, and it's going to open up this screen here. I already have Movie Spot made because I was, creating it for the purposes of this demo to actually know what I was doing. But we're going to create it from scratch this time. So when you start Xcode, obviously it presents you with this screen. You got a couple options. These are usually all your previous projects, or your most recent projects, and the thesis document. Yes, exactly. Yes, this is my finest work. So you can either get started with a playground, which is pretty much like one file. People use it a lot to like test ideas really quickly. You're going to be doing interface builders, or UIKit or Swift UI. I'm going to be doing Swift UI. Thank you for mentioning interface builder, actually. Maybe I'm going too much into this, but I mentioned the old way of building UIs before. There was interface builder and UIKit. Interface builder was more of a visual way of doing things. If you're interested in dragging and dropping views like onto a visual kind of screen, rather than coding them, then look into interface builder. So yeah, let's see, or you can create a new Xcode project or clone an existing one. So today we are going to just create a new Xcode project. And you got a couple options when you start. As you can see, you can make games, iMessage apps, these different OSs. Cross-platform is for a bunch of different things. I really haven't touched any of this stuff. I think it would be cool to do, but I haven't really gotten around to it. But for most apps, you're going to want to do a single view app, and that's what we're going to do today. And we're going to be giving it a name, so we're going to call it Movie Spot Demo. Since I already have a movie spot made, I can't duplicate it. And we're going to be writing it in Swift and using Swift UI. Storyboard is the old way that has to do with interface builder. Again, do your own research on that. I'm not going to dive too into that today, but we're going to be focusing on Swift UI. This right here is just some other stuff, some a little more advanced topics that you can look into on your own. All right, so now we'll just pick where we want to save it. And you can create a Git repo for your app, which is actually pretty nice. Like you can manage source control like right here pretty much without having to go back to the terminal. But we're just going to be disabling that since we don't really need it for the purposes of this demo. And we're going to create it. Let me know if I need to slow down at all too, or anybody has anything they want me to go back to. All right, so this is our first Xcode project. Congrats on making it this far. So I'm just going to kind of go through and explain a couple of these files. This app delegate here, it's basically the code that runs upon initial app launch. You have this function here called did finish launching with options. This is basically what runs after the function, after the app finishes launching, right? So you'd put code in here for like setting up a database, things like that. And I'm just going to get rid of this here. All sorts of other stuff. App delegate used to look a little different before Swift UI. It used to manage a couple more things. But now that's actually the job of scene delegate. And checking the chat here, we're good. So scene delegate is actually, of course, new with Swift UI and iOS 13. It essentially has to do more with UIs, you know, what you actually see, the different scenes, which is kind of a new iOS concept that you can look into a little later. I won't go into that too much. So yeah, you may be wondering like, what do these delegates mean? Like, what does that mean exactly? That basically means it's like this kind of design paradigm common in iOS called like delegation. And it's basically saying, okay, I'm a certain object or class, I have this responsibility, but I don't want to do it. So I'm going to pass it off to another class or object. I'm going to delegate it to somebody else. A good analogy I heard was I'm a baker, right? And I want to sell my bread. So I sell it to a bakery, right? Like I don't deal with that. I delegate it to somebody else. I just worry about baking the bread while somebody sells it. Hope that makes sense. So next here, we're going to go to the content view, which this is kind of the starting view for the app. And you can, of course, you can rename it if you'd like. You just have to change it in the scene delegate here. I should probably explain that too. This kind of chunk here is what essentially initializes the root view controller, which is the starting view controller, which is like another kind of iOS concept that I won't talk about much here because it's not really applicable to SwiftUI. You can look into that as well if you'd like. So yeah, let's see. So the content view is obviously what is going to be first seen. And in SwiftUI, we have this really nice thing called the canvas. So it essentially allows us to, it's more of a quick simulator, if you guys have heard of the iOS simulator before. So before SwiftUI, we'd have to essentially run our app every time we made a small change. So if you're like trying to figure out a UI and you're messing with different like levels of padding or different font sizes, you'd have to rebuild your entire app every time you want to see that. But now you can just have this canvas kind of preview thing for each view you have. So super nice, super fast. So we're just going to hit resume here. And you can see it's kind of building. It does take a second the first time. But after we make every incremental change, it'll be quick. So yeah, we got a hello world here. And this is actually the built version of this. So we have hello world. We can make small changes. Hello MHacks. You see how quick that changed? Before you'd have to type it all in. I can actually show you a little bit. You'd hit Command R to run it, which runs this command right here. And you'd have to go over here and pull up this simulator, and it builds the whole thing. It's still not even loading. It's yeah, it's still not loading. You get the idea. It takes forever. There it is. But we get this. This canvas is so much quicker. That's probably my favorite part about SwiftUI. Let's see what's next. So as I kind of mentioned before, SwiftUI is a declarative kind of approach, similar to HTML. If you guys have messed with that before, I'll dive into SwiftUI a little bit more as well. But explaining things a little bit further, this assets is basically for any kind of icons or photos or anything like that your app needs. This is how you like actually put the different icons in here that are these are all needed by the App Store if you were to actually like submit it. We won't actually touch this today. It's not a big deal for our purposes. The launch screen is essentially the what is shown like as your app is loading, like when you first boot it up. Like if you guys have used Lyft, like you might have seen, like once you tap on Lyft, you get like the pink screen and then the Lyft lettering in the middle. That's your launch screen. This info.plist, plist is a property list. It's essentially like a list of key value pairs that just has a bunch of information about the app. I've only really messed with this when I've used like Firebase or like third-party libraries. I think you have to add some information in here. Let's see. This preview content here. I've never actually touched this, so it's not a big deal. We're not going to mess with it today. You can look more into it if you'd like as well, of course. These tests, of course, testing is important, but today we're not going to touch it. I'd recommend researching that on your own as well. these UI tests, same thing, but obviously for the UI. And this products folder is basically a place where it's where Xcode puts your like final build products pretty much. So yeah, does anybody have any questions on general Xcode things? Feel free to put them in the chat. But yeah, I'm gonna kind of go on here. Yes, test is for another topic, but don't forget about it. Testing is important. So I guess we'll just kind of mess around with Swift UI a little bit and see some different things. So this text is, where can you run the preview again? Yeah, so if you go back to these view files here, like this content view is a view file. And basically whenever you make like a small change, it'll automatically render. Does that make sense? So, so obviously a text is great, but it's pretty basic, right? So let's say we wanted to make like a list, like if you guys have seen on any iOS app, I'm sure you have. Oh, another thing cool with Xcode, if you hold Option and then click on something, it'll give you a summary and give you some examples in some cases too. So yeah, that's pretty neat. So we're gonna wrap this in a list. So if you hold Command and then press on it, you can do all sorts of things, which is cool. But we're gonna embed it in a list, and yeah, you can see it. Another thing about Swift UI is it immediately shows up. So we get this hello MHacks 5 times. Just to kind of explain that, it's this part here accepts a range, which is essentially the 0 through 5 range. And it's saying for every item in this range, do this. So since there's 5 items, obviously we display it 5 times. Pretty straightforward. Another thing you may have seen is this navigation kind of view. So we'll do this. We'll wrap this whole thing, the navigation view, and this is gonna kind of display this. We can display some big text here if we want. So navigation bar title, and then this takes this little text object. This is not part of our final app, by the way. This is just some show and tell kind of stuff. You don't have to follow along with this part. So yeah, that's pretty cool too. Navigation views, you can do all sorts of stuff. They allow you to basically navigate between different views within your app, and we'll dive more into that as well as we go on. Anybody have any questions about Swift UI or anything like that? This is very basic right now. There's a lot of things you can do with Swift UI. And again, we'll touch on that as we go on. Oh, I had a slide to show on Swift UI here. I forgot about that. Let me switch my screen. Let's see. Yeah, I kind of talked about all this. You guys can see my screen, right? You guys are good? Oh, I missed the chat here. Okay. All right, I'm gonna assume we're good. So yeah, Swift UI, it's a pretty new way of declaring views. And the term view is what you actually see, right? And like I said, a big thing is you don't have to run the simulator every time. Thing I did not mention is Swift UI follows this MVVM architecture, which essentially means model, view, model, which is essentially the model, which is kind of like the model, right? Like what our data is going to look like, a representation of it within our app. And then the view is obviously what we're going to see. I don't know much about MVVM besides that, to be honest. I've worked mainly with MVC, and MVC is Model View Controller, which is what Swift used to adhere to before Swift UI. So that's what UIKit is. that's UI Kit and Interface Builder, both adhere to MVC. I won't talk about that as much. Somebody asked, I can't get it to automatically update when I change the code. I have to recompile. Do you see like within your view file on the, here, I'll switch screens. Let's see. Did anybody else have this problem? They can help this guy out here. Do you see like a little resume button over around here? If you do, then go ahead and press that. It's on a separate simulator app. Yeah, so you don't have to actually run it. That again, that's with the simulator, and this is the canvas over here. So it's a little different. It should, if you get rid of all this stuff, if you already have it, and you just do a basic text, it should be able to update automatically. Let me know if you don't get that effect. Let me know if anybody else is having any issues either, or any questions at all. How's everybody's hackathon doing? Going well? Making some cool projects? Hope so, hope so. I know my hackathon experiences haven't always been the most fruitful. I've always enjoyed just hanging out, booling. Oh, Shank, thank you. Shashank is he used to be on MHacks as well with me. Shout out to Shashank. All right, if there's no more issues, we're gonna move on a little bit. Let's see. Just looking at my notes here a little bit. So now we need to, obviously our app is gonna be about movies, right? And we're gonna be storing movies. So we need to come up with a way for our app to actually store those movies, right? And to represent them somehow. Let's see, so we need to make the model part of our MVVM architecture. So we are going to create a new Swift file. So if you go to your file up here and then new down to file, yeah, you can also just do Command N for that. And we're going to do a Swift file here. And we're going to call it movie. Let me know if I'm going too fast too. All right. Checking the chat here, we're good. All right, so we're gonna make this this new movie object. And in Swift, there are structs and classes for objects, but they work a little bit differently than in C++ like you may be used to. You can actually declare functions and both functions and like member variables in structs. The only difference is that classes, I believe, are reference types, treated as reference types, and the structs are value types. I might have that mixed up. But yeah, that's really the only difference. It's a little confusing, but we're actually going to use a struct for our movie. And movies, obviously, they have different properties, right? They might have a title. I'll explain the syntax here a little bit too. That's going to be a string. They're going to have an overview, right? A little description about the movie. That's a string. And they're going to have a release date string as well. little average voting, or a little the average rating of the movie, which we're going to call vote average. So about the syntax here, var is to declare obviously a variable in Swift, but the var means it'll be changed later, right? So if you use let, that means it's a constant. So var is what we're going to use to denote a variable. This colon here denotes the type. So this title is declaring it as we're declaring title as a string. Yeah. So we've got our movie struct made. That's correct. Yep. Let is constant, var is variable. Pretty simple. Yeah. So now that we've got our model made, we can maybe pass in we can create some dummy movies, maybe like some local movies that won't actually go into our final app. But let's see if we can do that here. So it's going to yell at me here for a sec, but that's okay. Basically, we want to connect our movie model and the content view somehow. And the way you do that in Swift UI, the way you can do that is this state kind of property. You can actually, again, just option click. Property wrapper type that can read and write a value managed by Swift UI. Seems a little general, but basically it's declaring some state within this content view. If you're not familiar with state, it's essentially, what's a good analogy? If like, like when the president gives their like State of the Union address, right? Like that's the status of the US, or like state here in this context is like the status of a class or something. It's like what kinds of things are in this kind of class. Maybe I explained that poorly. You can research that as well if you'd like. But we're going to declare this movies array because we're going to be storing an array of movies, right? So that's how you declare an array of something, is you wrap it in these brackets. So this is an array of the movie type. And we're going to set that to an empty array. You actually don't have to provide types. Swift uses type inference, but I just like to do it here to be a little verbose for the demo, and to make sure that the types are actually what we want them to be. So let's see. What next? So let's make a VStack, which is view that arranges its children in a vertical line. So essentially that means whatever's within this, it's going to be aligned vertically. So it's pretty nice. So we are going to make a movie, and you can see when you like create a movie, Xcode will automatically give you the parameters for it, which is pretty nice. That's another great thing about Xcode, I think, is that it's pretty smart when it comes to like completing your type completion and stuff like that. So we are actually going to make a list of movies. Yeah, thanks, Jeffrey. Yeah, appreciate it. Jeffrey just said, so the type system uses something called inference. Basically, the idea is if you declare a variable with the type you already defined, you don't have to type it again. Exactly, yeah. Jeffrey just gave an Android talk, right? Little plug there. I assume it went great. Jeffrey's a wizard when it comes to that stuff. Let's see. So essentially, this is kind of the syntax for declaring this list. We saw it a little bit earlier. This movies is our range that we're actually kind of iterating off of. So we're gonna, for every movie, we're gonna show the title. I'm going to movie.title here, accessing that, that title variable here. So let's see. So we have to actually store our movies, right? And we are going to do that down here. This is essentially the previews. This is like the actual preview, what's actually rendered. So it renders the content view. So we're going to say self.movie, movies. Actually, let's see, we have to do that up here, I believe, sorry. Self.movies. Self is saying, obviously self, right? Similar to this in C++. So we're going to make a couple movies here. Let's see, so title, say we want to call it Top Gun. I like that movie a lot. And we're going to call it overview, let's say some planes. Doesn't really matter for now. Release date, we'll just kind of leave that empty for now. Rate average, obviously 10.0. And let's see, let's make another one just for demo purposes. Let's see, let's do Ratatouille, great movie as well. I don't know if I'm spelling that right, I'm so sorry. Rat cooks, how about that? Yeah. Release date doesn't matter. Obviously another 10.0. Yeah, so let's see if that works. So we're going to resume over here. Function declares an opaque type. So missing an underline type. Let's see. We're going to actually set this up here. Make it work a little better. So we want to call this movie instead for each type. So so we kind of expected this error here. It says this requires that movie conform to identifiable, which essentially allows an object to be like iterated over and displayed. So we're going to do this. I'll explain it. So this essentially means that this movie struct is conforming to this identifiable protocol, which you can see this protocol here. Protocol in Swift is essentially like an interface. I think in other languages is the equivalent. It's essentially defines functions and different variables that a class must have. It doesn't actually implement anything. It just kind of gives like the function like definitions without actually, it's like the initial function line without actually implementing them. So we've got to conform to this protocol, and we're going to give it an ID, which allows us to adhere to this identifiable protocol. I'm just going to make it an int. That should work still. Still failed. Okay, there we go. Yeah, we got to put the ID in. So let's make it 0 and then ID 1. All right, so that should work then. All right, we're good. So then we're gonna try again over here since we failed before. So yeah, we got it going. Sweet. Anybody have any questions on that before we dive into some good app making? Cool. So we are going to dive into APIs now. And quickly, if you're not familiar with them, I got a slide on them real quick. So APIs in Swift. API is essentially like public information accessible by the programmer. It's essentially like the go-between between the database and the actual application. That's how a lot of applications, get their information from the back end, usually formatted in JSON. You can do more research on JSON if you'd like. They're essentially built up of objects and arrays. And in Swift, you access APIs through different methods like URL session, or that's an object, I guess, through different objects. You work with JSON using JSON serialization and all sorts of other stuff that we'll dive into as well. So let's go back here. And we are going to go to the, I'm sorry, my bad, the movie database API, which is where we're going to be getting our information from. So we go here, and this essentially has a ton of different movies that you can pull from. I had to actually create an account to access the API. You need like an API key that actually allows you to use the API, obviously. So if you want to do this on your own, definitely create an account. It's pretty easy. They approve you like instantly. So you can see like this is their documentation. You can scroll through this if you'd like on your own, but I have done that work for you. So I will, we will look at their API. So I'm using this thing called Rested. It's similar to Postman, if some of you have heard of that. Essentially, it's a way of actually sending API requests and viewing the response. So we'll get a good idea of the actual function, or actually what's returned from the API. And I am getting the URL here because I wrote it down beforehand. Let's see. So we're going to type in the URL up here. You don't really need rested to follow along. I'll just show you the result. So let's see. I'll explain this as well in a second. So this is essentially, we're going to the API here. We're looking for movies, and we are going to sort them by descending popularity. We're giving them the API key, and then we're asking for primary release years of 2020. So we're going to go, and we got a good response. 200 means okay, and this is our body here. This is what's returned. This is in JSON, so you can see that's a movie right there. That's another movie right there. So yeah, pretty cool. In decreasing popularity, you can see as well. So that's what we're going to be actually fetching today, and we're going to work with that as well. So I'm going to close out of Rested here. So let me know if I'm going too fast as well. I'll pause real quick here, answer any questions. All right, so we need a way to actually access this API, right? So we're going to be building a API manager, which is essentially going to actually interface with the API, right? So we're going to add a new file here, new file. It's going to be a Swift file. We're going to call it API manager. And we are going to be doing all sorts of fun stuff here. So it's going to be a class, API manager, we'll call it. We're going to pass in this API key here. Again, please don't save this or share it. Again, I'm going to be deleting it after the demo anyway, but please don't share it right now. You can type it down if you'd like for your demo, but please, again, delete your demo after this. You're right. I shouldn't ask the chat for to not do something. They'll always do it. Should learn from any Twitch streamers. Can you paste it in the chat? Yes. Good point. Yeah, I will do that. There you go. Thank you. So really all we need in this API manager is just a function to actually get the movies that we want. So we're going to call it get movies. Very creative. This is how you declare functions in Swift. Pretty easy. If you want to actually return something, you just do this arrow here, and then you say what the type is. So if you return an int, that's what it would look like. But we're not going to return anything for this function. So let's see. So we need to pass in a couple of things to it. So we're going to actually get the movies by their release year. And we're going to allow the user to actually put in that year. So we are going to pass in this release year. We're actually going to make it a string. It'll be just easier for converting between an int and a string. Well, you'll see later. So yeah, that's all we need for now. So we have this URL, right? And essentially we need to convert that to a URL object, which is like an iOS thing. And then we are going to send a request to that URL. So first we're going to create the URL. So we're going to do let, there's our constant right there, that let. So let URL, so URL object, string, and I'll copy and paste this in chat as well. Where is it here? It's kind of long, I know. There you go. So this is the same URL that we used in Rested earlier to send that API request. It's looking for movies, sorting by descending popularity, and passing in an API key, which is our API key here. And then we're sorting by, or we're asking for the primary release year. So we're only getting movies from this release year. And it's just giving us a warning here saying it's not used yet, but we're going to use it. And we are going to send the request. So the way you do that is you do this by a URL session and then shared data task with this URL up here. And actually we need a different little function. So we need the URL and we need a completion handler, which is essentially this completion handler will run as soon as it's complete. So we are going to use this data and we don't need anything here, and we're going to check for errors. So we're gonna first check for this error to see if the request failed at all. I'll explain this in a second too. So essentially this if let, there's this concept of optionals in Swift, which essentially an optional, like if you have an optional string, for example, it means that this thing can either be a string or it can be nil, like there can be nothing there. You can have optionals for any type. So we're essentially saying if let error equals error, which means if this error is not nil, that means we have an error, right? So we are going to print the error and then we're going to return and not do anything else because we know the request failed. And now we're getting an error up here saying that this is actually an optional. Good little segue there. But it expects a normal URL. So we are going to do this. I'll explain this as well. And then else return. So this is kind of a different way of safely unwrapping optionals. If let is another way you do it. It's called a guard let. I like it a little better because if you're unwrapping a lot of different optionals like in a row, it just makes it a lot cleaner. So we're essentially saying that we're getting this URL, we're safely unwrapping it. So we are actually converting this optional to the normal type, to the normal URL type. And if we can't do that, if we can't safely unwrap it, and if it's actually nil, if there's nothing in there, then we're just going to return. So continuing on down here, we're gonna do this do catch loop here to safely perform this operation. So we are going to do all this. I'll explain this as well. So it's kind of a lot here. Let's see. Options as string any. So this is our data, right? This is the response that we're getting from the URL, the request. And we're giving it no options. I don't really know what options you can give it. That's some specialized kind of stuff. So here's this if let again, where we're safely unwrapping this this type here. So this we can actually see is going to be a array of string to any, which is pretty much how you represent JSON in Swift, is like is an array of string to any. That's how we're going to represent it here, at least. So then inside it here, once we safely unwrap our JSON and it's not nil, we're going to get the results inside there. And string. So this results here was a key inside of that. Let me actually go back. I can show this again. I have the saved quest here. So if we just request it again, we see that the key into this results here, so we can actually get our array of movies. So that's what we're doing here, is we're getting from the JSON, which right now is all of this. We're getting the results, so then that's our results, as a array of dictionaries, string to any pretty much. And I think I haven't, oh yeah, need to change it to that. Let's see. So once we get our results, we're going to try to actually serialize our data, which is similar to what we did up here. Try JSON serialization data. So we're going to convert this to the data type, which makes it a little better to work with. Results, options, no options again. And we're going to build our movie array from the array of movies, obviously. But we're going to convert it into a way that is good for Swift to understand. So it's going to be an array of this movie object. And I'll explain this as well. So essentially we are decoding this data, which decoding is just a fancy word for converting one type into a type that's that's better to work with. So we're basically converting this results data into a array of movies type, and we're storing it as the movie array. Pretty straightforward. So if we catch an error ever, we're just going to print that error. You can just kind of put error, failed. Doesn't really matter for now. Let's see. So yeah, we see this, that movie needs to conform to another protocol, this decodable protocol, which we can go ahead and conform to. So we're going to go back to movie. And we just need to conform it to codable. which codable is it's a type alias for decodable and encodable. A type alias is essentially making a type or making like some other word refer to a type or a group of types in this case. So we shouldn't get any errors now. That'll go away in a sec. So let's see, what do we got now? Yeah, so we actually need to add one more thing here. Checking my notes here. We need to add a closure. So I'll type this out and explain it again. So this does seem pretty confusing. I don't know if I fully understand it, to be honest. Essentially, this is a this whole function is escaping, this parameter is escaping. I mean, which essentially will escape the function. So we can add this completion parameter down here. So completion movie array. We got a question here. What is the weight? What is the weight to have a try catch function if you're not confident with your code? That because so you don't like the try catch, huh? It's just another little safety precaution in case you ever error. It's good to put in. I know it does look weird, but yeah, hopefully that answers your question. Just good to do for any other failures that happen.
I mean, I think it's also if you're like the JSON is malformed, right? Like you will actually run into like a crash, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So again, we are assuming a lot of things with this whole function, pretty much. Like we're assuming that they're not going to change their API. That results is actually what is going to be in there. But for the purposes of this demo, that's okay. Yeah. What is JSON serialization? I don't really understand what that is. Yeah, great question. So that is essentially, so we get this data object up here, right? Once our request is complete to that API. And with this JSON serialization, we are essentially converting this data object, this data optional, into a string and any array, string mapped to any array. So that's just essentially making it so we can actually index into this JSON object here. So if I go back to results, again, that's this results key here. So that gets us this whole array because we don't actually need any of this data. We just want the array of movies. So it's just kind of a way of converting the data. Does that make sense? Let me know if it doesn't. What does line 32 do? Yeah, so I'll get into that a little later. It is a little complicated. Hopefully I'll have time to explain most of it. But yeah, remind me if I don't get to that by the end. Thank you. JSON and APIs, yeah, good call. So again, an API is essentially let's Google what API is. You can do this at home too. It's application programming interface. It essentially defines the data from a database, so programmers can fetch it and actually essentially an easy way of fetching data, right? And JSON is the format. It stands for JavaScript Object Notation, I think. So it's only in, I think JSON is only in objects and arrays. So this whole thing is an object, for example, these curly braces. And then obviously this is an array. You can see it goes all the way down here. Yeah, it goes down pretty far. And this isn't the only response that'll ever be generated, right? Like we can do all sorts of things as long as we add different things to the URL. And the way we know to actually, the way we know like what we can actually get is through the documentation here. For example, you can look up genres, and this, you just do /genre/movie list, /movie/list. It'll actually help you try it out, which is kind of cool. Obviously this is going to fail because the API key isn't in there. So yeah, I don't know if that's hopefully that's a good explanation. I'll just change it here a little bit. Maybe for an easy way to describe it, JSON is a plain text database. API is a controller to get fields of that JSON. Yeah, that's a pretty good way of explaining it for sure. Just to kind of see like different responses, I'm going to modify this URL up here. Can you guys see that up here? It's a little small, way up here. GraphQL. Gotcha. Also, I'm just gonna do like 1983, for example. So then we get movies from 1983, right? So if we modify this URL, we'll get different responses from the API. So yeah, hopefully I didn't butcher that and confuse anybody, but we'll move on here. Things will make a little more sense as we go on. All right, so now that we have our API manager pretty much built, we need to actually add this .resume here. This is kind of required. It resumes a task if it's suspended. I think it's just kind of a URL session thing. So we got to build the rest of our UI now. So we're gonna go back to our scene delegate here. We're going to, let's see. We're gonna delete this content view now, actually. We're gonna replace it with a different file. We're gonna move it to trash. And then we're going to file, new, file, Swift UI. We're gonna be calling it movie list to actually display the list of movies. Just gonna put it down here. So we need to actually tell the scene delegate that this is the new root view controller. So we're gonna do, or root view, I guess, in this case. So we're just gonna make a movie list right there. Swift, what did I do wrong here? Maybe I added it wrong here. I'm gonna delete it again. Sorry about that. Delegate movie list. There we go. All right. So now that we got that, let's go back over to our movie list. We can resume this to kind of see what's going on. And we're going to do kind of the same thing as we were doing with our dummy data before. We're going to add this variable movies. We're going to make it an empty array now because we're going to fill it later with the API request. And we're going to declare another state, which is going to be the actual API manager. So we can actually use it in here. API manager. All right. So going to make another list. Our range is going to be movies. And yeah, so state is the actual, state of the of this movie list object is essentially kind of if you were to take like a snapshot, like if you were to pause on like if the app was running and you were to press pause on the running of the app and you were to look at the movie list, the state would be, like the status of it, like what would be inside movies or what API manager would look like. It's kind of like the status of this movie list object. If that makes sense. So we're going to add this navigation link, which I'll explain in a sec. Destination. Let's see, I think that. So it's going to be called movie detail, which we'll make a little later. And inside of this, we're going to just do the text of the movie title. So this navigation link essentially allows us to tap on this this movie title, and then we'll go somewhere once we tap on it. And the place we'll go is this movie detail view. So we'll actually make that right now. So new file, SwiftUI view, movie detail. So this movie detail is going to be what appears once you actually tap on a movie. So obviously it'll essentially give you more details of the movie. So we are going to put a couple of things in here. It's going to need a movie. So we're just going to add that in here. We won't do the state right now. Let's see. My notes here was nice. Oh yeah, thanks, Jeffrey. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, thanks for mentioning that too. I forgot about that. Again, I'm kind of new to Swift UI. It's by declaring this state, it essentially links the this object to the actual view. So when it updates, when this object updates, the view will update as well. Yeah, so state drives the UI, exactly. Let's see. So let's keep going. So we're gonna go back to the movie list and add a couple of more things in. Yeah, let's see, movie detail, yeah, okay. Actually, for now, we're gonna actually comment this out so we can actually see the movie. So we are gonna add this method, this action here called onAppear. Essentially, it's going to run when this list appears, right? So we're going to actually get our movies like we talked about before. So we're going to do another state. We'll call it selected year, because we're going to allow the user to actually select what year they want to view. And for now, we are going to just hard code it in, but we'll modify it later. Let's say they want to get years from 2020. Selected year. And we're back to our completion handler, which is essentially going to, it's going to run, this block is going to run when we reach this completion here. So once we call this function in our movie list, once we call get movies, it's going to run here. It's going to save the URL. It's going to start the URL session. And then once the completion is run, we're going to escape this function, right? And our code here is going to run. So essentially it'll allow us to wait for the request to finish before we actually save anything. Because if we didn't escape this here, then we're just going to, it's going to be kind of, things are going to happen at the same time essentially. So this AP, if we didn't have this this completion here, where you would get the movies, and then while the movies were being collected, the view would render and nothing would actually show up. So we have to actually wait for the request to finish. So we're going to save the movies, and for fun, we'll just print the movies. All right. So in order to actually see this here, we need to hit play down here for the request to actually run. And then you cross your fingers, hope it works. Oh, what did we miss? Oh, okay. Let's see. We can just comment this out for now. We'll come back. Oh, no, it doesn't like that, does it? Let's see. We'll come back to this. Actually, yeah, we'll keep going and keep writing some code here, so we can all see it come together. So now let's implement the actual movie detail. So my thought is we want a image of the actual movie, the title, maybe like the average rating, and then maybe the short description of it below. And to actually do the image, we're going to talk about CocoaPods here. Let me switch my screen real quick. Actually, where am I? Okay, there we go. Let's see, let's bring this over here. All right. Gotta love Zoom, right? All right, so CocoaPods is essentially a dependency manager for iOS. It allows you to work with third-party packages, which essentially means it allows you to do stuff a lot easier with a lot less code. So let's say you have an idea for something, it could be anything. There could be a package out there already that does it for you. So you just have to pretty much download that package. It's super nice and offers a lot of simplicity. And there's other kind of systems rather than CocoaPods. There's Carthage and then Swift Package Manager. But CocoaPods is a pretty popular option. So we are going to use that. Go back to the screen over here. So where I said earlier, you'll need to actually download CocoaPods if you don't already have it. If you don't have it now, that's okay. We got to do a couple things to actually set up the project here, to actually set it up for CocoaPods. So we're going to go into terminal, into our project here, just at the root kind of the root directory for this project. Let me pull up my chat here to see if missing anything. All right, cool. So then you go back here, your terminal, and then you're going to want to make this this pod file, it's called. So you're going to want to do vim. I like to use vim. Vim pod file, and essentially, let's see. wrote some notes down here. It's kind of, you kind of have to write it pretty verbose. I just need to go back here. All right, so in our pod file, we're going to declare a target, which is essentially the name of the actual project. So movie spot demo is what I called it. And then we're going to do, and this is where we declare our pods. And the pod that we're going to use is called URL image. I should be able to look that up real quick. GitHub. And essentially this allows you to display images by just inputting a URL. It's pretty easy. So it saves us a lot of work by rather than, probably creating a whole new function for sending the request to the API. Once we get that data, then we have to work with it a little bit to actually get the image. But with this, we can just feed it a URL and then it'll spit us back an image, which is really nice. So we're going to, it's just called URL image and then end because we don't have any other pods to deal with. So then we're going to go out of here and then you need to do pod install, which essentially reads through your pod file and installs all necessary pods. All right, so it looks like we're good. We're going to actually close out of this because we need to open something different here. So we're going to go back to wherever you have the project. And you'll see now there's an XC workspace made. Before we just had an Xcode project. Now we have an XC workspace, which incorporates the pods as well. So you're going to have to open that. And yeah, you can see we have our pods now. So nothing else has changed. We just added in the pods. So now we're going to actually use this pod here. Let's see. So we're going to go to movie detail and we're going to import URL image. And then we're going to implement this scroll view because everything that's going to be on the page here is going to, all the information is going to go past the screen a little bit. So we'll be able to actually scroll to view all of it. So we're going to do a little VStack talked about earlier, and then our URL image, one underlying module. Sometimes you'll have issues with this. You usually just have to pretty much, I guess, like quit Xcode and go back in. It's kind of annoying, but I'm going to do that super fast. Come back in here. Hopefully it'll work. Well, good, it's not loading. Anything wrong here? Let's see. Shoot. Well, this is kind of just some annoyances with Xcode. It take a while for it to actually load. But it does look like I'm running out of time here. I think I had a couple other slides to show. I'll show those super fast. Yeah, I'll try to build it real quick. Good idea. Build failed. We're not getting an error here, but I'm wondering if it's because we're getting these errors as well. Yeah, kind of sucks, but sorry about that, guys. Let me switch to my other screen here. Show you guys a couple of slides. Let's see. I guess if you want to stick around, I can finish up this app and show you guys what the final product is. But if you guys want to pop off, that's cool too. Here's some resources that I put in here. I'll share the link to these slides as well. all these are pretty great. They offer some great tutorials, some different articles, it's good documentation. A couple of my favorites are on YouTube. Let's Build That App is a good one. He does some like popular app rebuilds. Like he'll like rebuild YouTube and Twitter and stuff like that. All these are great resources if you want to learn more about iOS. I definitely recommend. Of course, we had some struggles today, but that's part of the process, so it's fun. Let's see. So this is the link to the actual finished demo. Feel free to clone it and run it yourself and check out the finished code. It is on the demo branch. Master is the incomplete one, but demo is what you're going to want to look at. And here's the link to these slides as well. I can put them in the chat too. The link to the chat. I can send it in the, oh, not shorter, my bad. Short URL. I'll probably put it in the Slack as well. So, but yeah, let me know if anybody has any questions. Otherwise, feel free to pop off and I'll stick around and try to figure this out.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Good job.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, man. Thanks, Connor. This was awesome.
Thanks, Connor. You're so cool.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Connor, I'll stay on if anybody wants to see the app get finished, just so
Okay.
the recording finishes up.
Gotcha. Sounds good. Oh yeah, I forgot it's recording. Let me know if I need to stop at any time as well.
No, go ahead. Whatever you want to do.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm here for it.
Gotcha. Sounds good. Yeah, hopefully it was all right. It's the first time I've ever done anything like this, to be honest.
No, this was awesome. Thank you.
Was it?
Thank you
Okay.
so much for doing this.
Yeah, of course. Glad I could help out. Let's see what I'm going to do now. Guess I could pop on some music while I just kind of code here. I guess are you guys like actively paying attention, or are you just kind of here? Do you want me to explain what's going on? I can do that.
Yeah, I guess if you want to go over what you're doing here.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess we got the URL image to pop up. It expects a URL. So we're passing it that URL essentially the same way we made the URL earlier with this string here. So passing this URL and then URL image will actually fetch that image from the URL. And this here is just kind of what I found on the API docs of how to actually get poster images. Oh, this poster path as well we have to add. That's going to be another variable we're going to save into here. It's just going to be a string. And back here. to make something a little different. And add this placeholder in also. And this placeholder is essentially obviously the placeholder for the image if it doesn't load. So we're going to add in a little progress view here. This is kind of extra, but it's cool too. I actually just found this like on the repo. Just kind of copied and pasted it. But yeah.
What's
somewhere
the $0 argument for the progress view?
Yeah, let me see. So I think I'm explaining here. Let me see. I'm trying to remember too. I believe it's the progress, maybe. I think. We can actually see
gotcha.
what. Yeah. Because I think it depending on the progress, obviously the progress view will look different. So I think that's what parameter is passed.
Makes sense.
Okay, cool. I'm glad. So this Z stack is essentially like into the screen. So it's like things like stacked on top of each other. So if the progress is greater than 0, we're going to load this progress view. Circle progress view. Progress passed in. We're going to add a stroke here, which is just like some different kind of yeah, it's this is like the actual like line that's being made once you see the circular progress view, and it should show up too once we run the app here. So otherwise, we circular activity view. Line width is going to be 50. We're just going to force unwrap this for now because this is a optional, but this little exclamation point here means like we're force unwrapping it, which essentially means we know it's going to be, we know it's not going to be nil. So we're just going to get the actual URL. It's pretty dangerous if this whole thing were to actually return nil, then the whole app would crash. So you got to be careful when you do that. But we know this is a valid URL, so we're just gonna put the exclamation point there. Image processing expected. Let's see. Check my work over here. So I think I might have passed the wrong function in. Let me do this again. So we need a URL. The placeholder, and we need, let's see. Yeah, so it's going to be that actually. I believe. Put that in there. right. So then this content here, let's see, is essentially just going to be the like the different styling of the actual image. So we're going to make it resizable. Yeah, aspect ratio. This is again is all pulled from that repo. Essentially, it makes it look nice. So I'm just kind of shamelessly copying it.
Gotcha.
Five. Padding. Oh. So that's the whole URL image, kind of a lot. But I guess you really don't like need all of this. But it's kind of nice to have a little progress view and some different styling to the image as well. So add another vertical stack. 1 minute. Leading, which means it's going to align to the leading edge, which is our left edge of the screen if we're looking at it. So then actually we just want the alignment. So alignment, we can get rid of all this. Leading. And then inside of the VStack, we're gonna add this horizontal stack, which is gonna be the movie text, the movie title. And then we're gonna add some more styling. We're gonna make the font large title. Font weight. It's going to be heavy, so the actual text is going to be thick, so we can actually see it. And a little spacer in here to kind of space things apart. And string. So we're going to convert. We're going to display the vote average as well. And since this is a float, we got to convert it to a string, so we can actually pass it in this text. Quite thick indeed, Justine. And then just outside of this horizontal stack, I'm going to add the movie overview. And then outside of this vertical stack, from the bottom, we're just going to add a little padding. And then, so if we actually want to see what the movie detail is going to look like, we're going to have to add a little placeholder movie. So I'm actually just going to copy and paste it here from my other project. Could have done that before, I guess. But so this placeholder movie, we're passing in all this information here. It's going to be Inception, another great movie. This is actually the poster ID, I guess, that I just found on the movie database. And then we're returning this movie detail. We're passing in this movie. And then you can actually change the preview device, which is pretty cool. So I just made it iPhone 11 Pro. And we resume it here. Building, it's kind of a lot. And you can see we got our nice iPhone 11 Pro, which is pretty cool. You can also add a bunch of other preview devices as well, I believe. Oh yeah, so this canvas actually it won't show this URL image result. Because I think I read somewhere it doesn't actually work with like third-party packages for some reason. So we have to actually run the simulator. So just hold Command R. And then drag it over here. And we're failing. Let's see. Well, a good debug exercise, I suppose. Oh yeah, so no value associated with key coding keys. So we have to go back to our movie object and add some more stuff. So we have to add these coding keys, which essentially make it easy for Swift to decode the result from the API to this movie object. So I'm just gonna copy it here. So we had to rename these couple of things here because this is how they're named in the actual API. And this is how we name them up here. I just wanted to go with the camel case, so I like that better personally. But if we actually called these variables, if we made them the same, then we wouldn't have to do this reassignment. But yeah, you kind of have to add that in if you want to use Codable. Codable is kind of a newer thing, I guess. It's a better way of working with JSON than before. I don't know too much about it again. So let's see. So this should be the same, I guess. So yeah, you can see Inception, a great movie. Obviously URL image doesn't load. But before we run the simulator again, I'm gonna finish out this movie list. Let's see. So let's actually run it and see how it goes. Oh, it worked, nice. So these are the movies from the API request. These are the movies from 2020. And if we add this navigation link, it should actually work. You can see how this simulator process would get annoying too. Like every small change, you have to rerun it. So that's kind of annoying. So yeah, you can see these little arrows, I think, indicate maybe, or maybe not. Okay, I can't click on that for some reason. Let's figure that out. I guess while we can do other stuff too, we'll just add a little navigation title. Call it movies. You should be able to resume and see what's going on too. We have to actually hit play here too to actually run the request. It might take a second. Right. For some reason, the this bar title isn't showing up. Let's figure that out. All right, not sure what's going on there either.
Quick looking at Stack Overflow, the list needs to be inside a navigation view.
Oh shoot, yeah, I totally missed that. Yeah, you're right. Good call. Forgot about that. Thanks, Cole.
Yeah, no problem.
Nice. Nice, nice. All right, might have to stop this and rerun. There we go. Nice. All right, yeah, this actually works. Good call, Cole. So yeah, you can see this is our poster. This is our detail view. And this might, yeah. Yeah, so this, the reason we can't actually run, we can't actually see anything, I think is because of this, this third-party package here for some reason. But it works in this movie list. I might need to rerun it. It'll work on the simulator anyway.
Yeah, this is really cool to see it all come together.
Yeah, it is. It is pretty sweet for sure. So yeah, you can see we got our title there, which I'll go back here. You might be able to see the placeholder. Yeah, you can kind of see that quick, the circular progress right there.
Yeah, that's sweet.
Yeah.
That's a nice touch for sure.
Yeah. Let's see. So we have this whole vertical stack here, which up here is and wraps pretty much everything. And then we have our URL image, and then the next vertical stack here is for everything else, obviously. So we have our the text for the movie title, and then the vote average and the overview. And yeah, so for example, if we were to get rid of the spacer, you can see that's for the space here. It'll look pretty different. Yeah, you can see it like shrinks right there. So that doesn't look very good. That's why we had that spacer in there.
I think I'm sold on the Swift UI. Using the old version where you had to like do everything graphically was definitely a lot slower than this.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. I don't know why I didn't use it earlier. I think Swift UI came out like 2019, like late 2019 or something. But yeah, it's really nice for sure. Let's see. So I think we just have one more little feature to do, which we can do quickly. So back to this movie list. So obviously we hard coded in the selected year before, but we don't want that. So we are, initially we'll just set it to the current year, which you get this way. So calendar is this object within Swift. And this is how you essentially get the current year. I had to like Google this. I didn't know this from scratch. Never converting it to a string. So we're just setting that as the default for now. And let's see. So I'll add this other vertical stack and I'll add some text. Just say release year, and then we'll give the user an option to actually input a year. And then inside here, oops, another H stack. We're gonna align it in the center. Dot center. Spacing 25. And content, I think we can delete. Make a text field, which obviously allows users to actually type something in. And type title and text. We'll just make it empty. Binding, that's essentially obviously binding it to this selected year here. You use the $sign because it's a state object. So whenever the user makes a change to this text field, it'll be bound to this selected year. So then just style it a little bit. Give it a little rounded border. Oops. again, I didn't really know like most of the stuff. I had to Google a lot of it. Because they're just pretty like, I don't know, random stuff, I guess. So, so we're gonna add a button to actually submit the selected year. So action, it's gonna be that. This is essentially what, this is gonna be what happens when you actually, when you actually submit the button. So we're gonna set, sorry, I'm like looking back and forth here. Look at this again. So we want to restrict the user from putting in certain things, like they can't put in letters or symbols, or like year one, for instance. Like I did some, I kind of experimented a little bit, and turns out like the earliest year that the database uses is like 1882 or something like that. So it can't be any year before that, or obviously any year past the current year. So we're gonna just make this little Boolean is invalid year. I'll explain it a little later. False. So then we're gonna do that. So this is kind of a lot, but this essentially checks for invalid characters here. So if the if the selected year is not a superset of the decimal digits set, or if it's not an integer, or if it's greater than the current year, or if it's less than 1881, kind of a lot. But then you're gonna set the, or it is an invalid year, so you're gonna set that. And then otherwise, we are just going to request the movies with that selected year. So then, yeah, we don't need this.
Wait, so you're making an API call within your view?
Yeah, it's kind of nice because this is like the action. So it's like this is all the code that runs like once you press the button.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's only because it's inside this action thing. Like you couldn't have this if else block outside like here.
Okay, so it doesn't run every time the state changes, right?
Right, like this whole block just runs every time this button is pressed.
Gotcha.
That makes sense, yeah. I know it's a little weird. This whole like Swift UI is pretty new, I feel like, in mobile in general. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, right.
Android is like similar to like UIKit and stuff, right? Like it's very like imperative kind of way.
Yeah, they're trying to like copy like Swift UI with another like technology, but yeah, it's pretty similar. Like almost like all the concepts in like iOS and Android is pretty similar. Like I could just guess what you're doing or the syntax.
Sense, yeah.
Like
Right,
Kotlin
yeah.
and Swift are so similar.
That makes sense, yeah. So what we're doing here is just adding just making the text of the button to be search. And then we're gonna add a frame to this little button here. Just doing that. I only found these numbers after like tweaking them a little bit. Definitely takes some messing around with after a while. So let's see. So we can also, if the user actually inputs like letters or invalid years or anything like that, we want to actually tell them. So we're going to make this alert. It's actually pretty different from the way alerts were made before. Oops, not that. Dot alert is presented. Here. This essentially determines whether or not it's actually going to be presented. And obviously that depends on if it's actually an invalid year. So if it is, then it's going to be presented. So then this code here, we're going to make this alert object. It needs a title, text, or title, a message, and a dismiss button. So the title is just going to be text, invalid year. Message, we'll just make it you entered a wrong year. Obviously, in practice, you'd make a better description. And then that's just going to be the text of the dismiss button. So let's try it out. All right. So obviously we're only getting this section, so we need to move some things around here. Let's see. Let me know if you guys see anything either. Just kind of looking back and forth here. Oh yeah, so all this needs to be inside of the vertical stack actually. So this, I'll move it in here. That's kind of annoying about Swift UI too. There's a lot of curly braces. So you kind of get lost a little bit. At least I do.
Yeah, Christmas tree.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So yeah, looks like it worked. So I guess just to break it down, this little vertical stack is pretty much everything. It's this whole section, it's the list, all of that. This text obviously is the release year, and then we're making a little horizontal stack to denote this direction, left and right, obviously. So we're making a little text field, which is this, and then a little search button. This text here is the selected year, which we've set to the current year, 2020. So it appears automatically there. All right, thanks, Hope. Appreciate it. Goodbye. Thank you. So yeah, I think that's about. Do you guys have any questions at all on anything, or I think this is
no questions for me. Yeah, this looks great.
Okay, cool.
So
Love it.
those are with Swift, is there like, or the UI stuff, is there like that notion of like what you did with like constraints before, like Swift UI?
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, so before, I wonder if I can actually pull up an example to show you guys. I'll go to my GitHub. But yeah, would have to you'd have to actually create the object. It's probably similar to Android, but you'd have to create the object, add it to the the parent view, and then like set all your constraints, or it just wouldn't show up, and it wouldn't really tell you like what the issue was. Because like oftentimes if you just have like one constraint missing, then it just won't show up, which is pretty annoying. We'll just go to this Michigan Hackers app. I'm sure there's something here.
But with like this declarative API, like, are you able to do like this constraint-based system, basically?
I don't really, honestly, I don't really know. I didn't really make it. I didn't really make it too far.
Gotcha.
But I mean, it's not really restricting us very much, right? Because we didn't really need to set any constraints that way. But yeah, I do wonder about that, like what the system is for that.
Yeah, it's easy with like linear or horizontal like lists. Then I don't know about like really complex views.
Right, definitely. Is it similar in Android too, where you have to like that whole system of constraints?
Yeah, that's like the most common way people develop now, like using constraint layout or constraint-based system.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's it can be pretty annoying for sure, having to play around with it and whatnot.
Yeah, it's very sexy though. Like it's really stable for something that's only been out for a year.
Yeah, definitely.
Mhm.
Seems like it got a lot of support, like off the bat, pretty much.
Yeah.
Trying to find a good example here. Okay, so I guess this is a whole like text view. This syntax is a little weird, but you're essentially declaring this object, and then inside of it, you're editing. You're making little edits. You're changing the text color, the background color, all that. And then down here, this info label you add to the parent view, and then you have to make all these constraints for to actually set it the way you want. So yeah, there's like a couple different ways to do constraints in Swift. I've noticed this is like the anchor kind of way. Like you see, we're setting the center X anchor, all that stuff. So
Yeah. Cool.
yeah.
Cool.
So yeah, I think that's all I got. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of long, but
Thanks so much, Connor, for sticking around and finishing that up too. I think people looking at the recording are gonna appreciate it.
sounds good. Yeah, no problem. Sorry, I kind of ran over too, but
No, you're good. You're good. I think you spent a lot of time answering people's questions, which was really thoughtful of you. I think everybody got a lot out of it.
that's good to hear. Yeah, I'm glad people enjoyed it for sure.
Thanks a ton,
But,
Connor. That was so cool.
Yeah, no problem. It was good seeing you guys too. Good chatting a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, definitely.
In-person event. We gotta meet up again.
I know, right?